Hi, Tile at Inner Fidelity here. Today we're going to talk about a headphone amplifier. This is the Butte by Apex Hi-Fi, which is the manufacturing arm of Todd the Vinyl Junkie online. Since this is my first headphone amplifier review, I should go into some of the basics here about why you need a headphone amplifier. Essentially, it's for exactly the same reason that you need a good power amplifier if you're going to use it with good speakers, and that's to make it clear. It's not to make it louder. You can get a headphone plenty loud from most headphone jacks, but the problem is the headphone amplifiers behind most headphone jacks really don't have the authority and essentially the low output impedance and clarity and speed to drive the headphones very accurately. And that's where the headphone amplifier comes in. So if you have a good source and you have good headphones, then you need a good headphone amplifier in between to deliver the sound clearly. The Butte is a perfect example of a headphone amplifier. This is a $495 headphone amplifier. It's a solid state headphone amplifier. It uses some Burr Brown 552 chips, and we'll show you those here in a little bit. On the rear is the two inputs. This has two RCA inputs, left and right, and it has an 1/8 inch mini jack input that's convenient if you're plugging it into an iPod or some source with a mini jack, so you can just use a mini jack cable. Also has a power input, uses 12 volts AC, and that way you can make a plus and minus 12 volt supply internally so that it can be designed without any DC blocking capacitors, which is a very good thing. So this is a DC coupled amplifier. On the front panel it has a power switch, a headphone jack, a 1/4 inch headphone jack, an input selector to select between the RCA inputs and the 1/8 inch mini jack input, and a volume control. So it's basically an amplifier, takes an audio signal in, drives the headphones on the output, and adjusts the volume on them. Let's take a look inside the Butte, shall we? Alright, I'm taking apart the Apex Butte here. I've taken off the front panel knobs and some of the rear panel nuts, and you can see I can just pull that off. Front panel is held to the rear panel with long threaded screws that go through the extrusion, and the board simply slides out. And I'll connect the power supply. This is a 12 volt AC power supply. This is the unregulated power supply section of the board. The power switch here, once turned on, will now connect that AC through the rectifiers, the diodes here, and we'll start charging up the caps. And this power supply, rough power supply, delivers about 19 plus and minus 19 volts of unregulated energy. Then goes to the power supply regulators here. This is a National Semiconductor LM2990 and 2940. These are 12 volt regulated regulators. You can see I can measure its output here. So 11.87 volts there. I can do it there as well. That's the negative power supply, and here's the positive power supply. There are some storage capacitors on the regulated supply here, and then also local decoupling of the power supplies here and on the board with smaller caps. This is a very nicely done. The devices that are being used as the amplifier and output devices are the Burr Brown OPA 552FA. These are fairly high current, high voltage operational amplifier. Very nice device, really, with a good slew rate. This is the input selector switch. It has two inputs on the back, two RCA connectors for left and right, and a 1/8" mini plug here. And then on the output, right close to the output here, we have some FETs. These are used as constant current sinks, which force the op amps into Class A operation over most of their range. This type of headphone jack I like a lot. This is a nice high contact pressure headphone jack. This is a Panasonic pot, I believe. I'd like to see a little bit better pot in here, but it's okay. All in all, I thought this was a pretty nice, clean design, and well engineered. I thought the layout was good, and the same on the bottom of the board. So a nice piece of gear, fairly straightforward and simple. Good stuff. All right, now that you've seen the insides of this little guy, I can tell you that I really enjoyed listening to it. Had a very clear, articulate sound, very, very transparent sound. Didn't have any of the graininess or hardness that sometimes is heard with lower cost solid state headphone amplifiers. Had plenty of gain and plenty of voltage to swing, and plenty of current to drive current hungry headphones. I tested this with the Hi-Fi Man HE500, the Odyssey LCD2, the Sennheiser HD 800, and in all cases this little amp delivered clarity with aplomb. Really did a great job. So I can happily recommend this headphone amplifier for those of you looking to be serious about headphones, get a good amp to drive the headphones with. The amplifier is sort of, many will tell you that the amplifier is the least important thing in the chain in terms of having a good source and having good headphones, but once you have a good source and good headphones, you really need a good headphone amplifier to get the best out of them, and I can certainly recommend the Butte as a great place to start your journeys into high-end headphone listening. All right, thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.